tide is. And look right here, this is a strong tide that's coming in. It happens maybe every, I don't know, maybe 15-20 minutes you see a big tide like this come up. We haven't seen it come up too far yet. We were actually right where the barricade was maybe about 30-45 minutes ago, and then that's when Parks and Recreation came and told us that we had to move back again for the third time so that way they can move the barricades up. So as you can see, all that debris is coming up. That's how far that the tide has been coming. It's been slowly and steadily moving up more and more just in the past couple hours that we've been out here. The surf, the waves, very tough, really rough out there. And again, the winds are getting stronger. It's been raining off and on. Right now it's kind of a drizzle, but nothing too intense. Every now and then we'll get a huge gust of heavy rain and heavy winds, and then it ends up kind of dissipating a little bit. And this is how it's been now for the past 30 minutes or so. Again, we did speak with Parks and Recreation, and they gave us their number in case we have to call them if things start looking funny. Again, they said that the tide and how strong that the winds and waves are actually destroying some of the dunes and starting to tear some of it away. So we're definitely going to be keeping an eye on that. A lot of people have been out here, coming out, taking pictures, getting video. Again, CCPD is out here to make sure that everybody is safe. No one is going past these barricades. We have not gone past these barricades. We're staying right here, and we're going to keep an eye on Hurricane Hanna of how she's affecting our Gulf beaches. Paulo?
Well, you guys stay safe, and the video that you guys are capturing is awesome, showing the dunes, how they are breaking down, and that's why they're put in place to keep the rest of us safe. If they weren't there, that surge would be just rushing down the streets. Now, in that video, Chelsea, you can see some of the debris that's being moved. These aren't light items. Those are logs and big pieces of timber that are being moved around out there.
Yeah, Paulo, they are. A lot of tree branches, a little bit of trash you can kind of see, but definitely big logs. Actually, maybe it was the second time that the Parks and Recreation crew were out here moving everything out of the way. They had to pick up some of these logs and put them on a front end loader just to kind of push everything away. You mentioned the dunes. Well, the front end loader tried to move some sand kind of around, so that way it's blocking a lot of that tide that's coming in. But as you can see, it's just so strong, and it's so tough right now to really control it, and something like this you really can't control. So that storm surge warning is definitely in effect. It's definitely happening right now. We're seeing it happen, and it's been happening more aggressively just in the past couple hours that we've been out here.
All right, I know when you first got there, Chelsea, the barricades were beyond those wooden posts that were back there. You gave a great description on how that surge is bringing all the sand. That was an area that folks used to be able to drive around, where those posts and that cement curb is. It's going to take some time, I would imagine, to get all this stuff cleaned up.
Paulo, I can only imagine. You know, something that's interesting, the Parks and Recreation Department told me they have 25 miles of beach to go and basically do what they just did here. They've been back here 3 times already, just moving these barricades, moving debris out of the way, and making sure that this tries to stay as clear as possible. But again, you can only do so much. But again, they told us 25 miles of beach that they have to control, and this is just one little part of it. So I can only imagine how much cleanup there's going to be once all of this is over. Once all of this really starts to die down, those front end loaders are helping move a lot of that debris out of the way and move everything that you can. But right now, there's only so much you can do because the tide just continues to come up further and further.
And I know that resources are really strapped right now. Things are bad, but they're only going to get worse. So that's why authorities are telling folks stay off of the beaches and stay home if you can. Is that the same message you're getting?
Yeah, you know, earlier, there's a guy right here. So earlier we had quite a few people that were actually trying to walk over past that little circle roundabout where the flags are. Once the city crews came back for the 3rd time, they told them, hey, you can't be walking over here. It's not safe, okay? Because it may look fine right now. The surf, of course, looks rough, but it may be fine you may think it looks fine to walk over there, but in a minute's notice, that tide comes up so strong, and it's very strong. It's so strong that when these barricades were first on the other side of the roundabout, one time that the tide came up, all these barricades just went down. So it's very strong out there. Again, there is CCPD. Well, they were out here, and now you can see a couple of these people are actually walking around the barricades. Not safe. I wouldn't recommend it. We did hear earlier that there were a couple people over near Bob Hall that were walking around. I have not heard anything else about that. But again, right where you see right now, it's not safe to be where they are, and we do not recommend it. But again, a lot of these people are doing, we can't tell them otherwise. They're doing what they want to do. CCPD were out here, and they were making sure that people were not going past these barricades. I have not spoken to these people, so I'm not really sure, but it is definitely not safe to be out at the beaches, to even be driving near the beaches. But as we know, a lot of our beaches are even closed. And again, city parks and recreation are going out and putting out these barricades on the 25 miles of stretched beach that they control.
All right, Chelsea, thank you for that. And we're going to check back with you in just a little bit. Stay safe, get dry. And they put those barriers up for a reason. That is to keep all of us safe. Now, there's going to be some strong winds that are going to be coming with Hurricane Hanna as it makes landfall. It's going to be packing a punch. So the worst has yet to come. Do not head out to the beaches. Try to stay home if at all possible. Don't head out into the roadways. You could chance being stranded or stuck on the road. Then you're going to take up some resources that could be used elsewhere to help people that are really in need, maybe used to try to get you unstuck or rescue you because you ventured out in a time when we should have. And we also know that Mayor McComb yesterday gave the order at 1 p.m. to keep pedestrians off the beach. They've already had set an order to keep vehicles off the beach, and then pedestrians were told to stay away yesterday. So you shouldn't be heading out there. Now, as I said, Hurricane Hanna is going to be packing a punch. The strong winds that Hanna is going to have could leave neighborhoods littered with downed trees, other debris. Solid waste crew, we do know, were out and about doing their regular brush pickup yesterday, and they'll most likely hit the street again on Monday once we have the most of this storm pass through the area. And that'll all depend on weather conditions and what sort of damage that Hurricane Hanna caused. Now, the Waste Department will make a decision tomorrow on whether extra brush pickups are needed for any cleanup. And the folks in the city's customer call center, they're also bracing for a very busy weekend. They've moved from, they're typically off on the weekends. Well, they've moved now to a 24-hour operating schedule. So if you have any issues dealing with blocked roads, downed trees, or downed power lines even, that could be dangerous. You have any of those issues, you're asked to call them. Do not call 911 and flood them with calls of non-emergency calls. Now, the number to call for the call center is 826-CITY, 826-CITY. They'll be the ones to help you. And if you were planning to go around town and you were hoping to catch a bus to get around town, well, we need to inform you that the RTA will not be having any buses scheduled today. They have closed all the routes because of the probable dangers that lurk ahead. Now, they said the winds and the rain will make it unsafe to do any bus routes, so they have all been canceled. The spokesperson told us it just won't be safe to have that done. And a quick reminder, we saw some folks over there going past the barricades. Area beaches are closed. They're closed off to residents. The only folks you should see out there are emergency personnel. Now is not the time to go and take selfies and just take a look, see what's happening. It's dangerous right now, folks. Stay home. They have these orders in place to keep all of us safe. And we are out there, the media, you have other media groups that are out there. We're staying ahead of the barricades. We're in places that we're supposed to be. So just stay at home right now. That's the best place that you can be. Stay off the roads, keep them free so emergency personnel can get to the places they need to and assess all the areas that they need to. Now, you may have been like a lot of folks, a lot of friends and neighbors out yesterday. I know I went to go gas up. Gas stations were packed. Well, they weren't the only ones that were packed. Everyone was stocking up on supplies last night, trying to get through this storm. Local HEBs were packed with folks picking up their essential items. This was the scene over last night at the HEB Plus on Saratoga, and the parking lot was full. The checkout lines were full. Then at Sutherland's, folks need to board up their windows, get everything secure for those winds that we're expecting. We did come across one couple that was dealing with the COVID-19 situation, but they still needed to venture out and get the items they needed. So they did that.
And he's very accessible, so I have to be very cautious of where we go, what we're going to be doing.
Now, the shoppers did tell us that both of those locations and many of the others that folks visited were well stocked. They were able to find all the items they needed. They found shelves stocked, and that just goes to show even the businesses were being prepared.
From KRIS 6 News, this is your Hurricane Hanna update, brought to you by the law offices of Herman & Herman.
We're going to take a quick pause real quick and get a check with weather this morning with meteorologist Sharon Ray. She's been my partner in crime all morning. We've been here since early morning hours. We started tracking Tropical Storm Hanna. Now it's turned into Hurricane Hanna. What are you seeing right now, Sharon? And has anything changed as far as when this storm is going to make landfall?
Not quite yet. The storm is still forecast to hit to our south around 2 o'clock this afternoon or so toward Baffin Bay. And we are seeing, though, the rain that's been picking up. And from Chelsea's live shot, you saw that wind was picking up as well, including Roland's live shot where he was having some trouble there with the camera. So, yeah, that's what we're going to see through the morning as the center gets closer to us. That wind, rain will be on and off, but it'll at times be heavy, and then sometimes it'll be light. But don't get caught off guard thinking that it's over with, because this rain's going to be on and off for a few days now. Anyway, here's a look at downtown Corpus Christi, and we have the clouds in place. The rain has been falling. We've picked up 0.3 of an inch of rain so far, with 26-mile-an-hour winds right now at the airport, but the winds are stronger as you get toward the bay and toward the coastline. In fact, in Beeville, the winds are at 18 miles an hour, not quite as strong inland yet. That's going to be lighter if you live in Beeville today, but if you live farther south, they'll be picking up. In Kingsville, we only have a 17-mile-an-hour wind right now, as that storm hasn't made it on shore yet, and we're also seeing that rain picking up as well. We've picked up 0.4, well, almost a half an inch at Port Aransas, but I did see some reports of 0.8 of an inch, and you can see the dark rain clouds as they're moving across the city right now, and these are going to be very common in the next couple of days, especially today through mid-late morning. There's a look from SPID looking toward the island, and you can see, just a dark sky out there, and we're going to continue to watch that rain moving in and out of the area with these bands that'll be moving through. So rainfall today, you can see we've had about a half an inch. I did see up to 0.8 in Aransas County. So local impacts haven't changed a lot. The winds gusts will be as high as 70. I think most of us are going to come in around 50 to 60 for the peak gusts today. Landfall, pushing that back maybe to 2 o'clock, between 2 and 3, according to the calculations I just did. And the rainfall amounts, 4 to 8 inches, possibly up to 12, are still possible with this. And we've talked about this in our show, the high tides and the rip current risk. You could see it for yourself in Chelsea's live shot, and that's that storm surge that we are seeing, with the water expected to be not only today but tomorrow, with the storm surge warning 3 to 5 feet above normal across our coastline. Not only that, but we're going to see some of those storms wrapping around in those bands around the storm, and isolated tornadoes will be possible as well. So we got a lot to watch through the day today, as you know how powerful these storms can be. And it all depends on where you are in the hurricane. They have different quadrants as it's coming in. I wanted to explain this because this is why we have that storm surge, why Chelsea was showing us that water so high up on the beaches, because of where we are in respect to where the storm is traveling. So when we look at the quadrants of the storm, we can break it into 4 parts here. Storm direction going this way, and the front front right is where we have the most impact, the highest storm surge, highest winds here, as well as the back right. We often tend to get a lot of wind. The front left, you can get a significant storm surge as if you are in that quadrant of the storm, and if you're in the back right, that significant wind with the storm. Now, if you're on the other side, the left right, that's kind of where you, or back left rather, not left right, back left, yeah, that's where you want to be in these, because that's the weakest part of the storm, although it can still be quite dangerous. So where are we? Take a look. Here is Hurricane Hanna with 75-mile-an-hour winds, gusts to 85. Here's the direction of the storm, and if you break that into those quadrants, we are in the upper right quadrant. So that's where we're getting the storm surge. You see that water coming in, the winds and all the energy piling in from the Gulf toward the coastline, pushing that water right up against the coast, and that's why that storm surge is there. We're also seeing the moisture, the bands of moisture wrapping around this system. So right now it's moving west at about 7 miles an hour. That's a little bit slower than what I was showing you earlier this morning, and that is going to make it come in probably between 2 and 3. Category 1 storm right now. This is where it's forecast to be. Still off of South Padre Island at 1 o'clock. Forecast is still 80-mile-an-hour winds, gusts as high as 100. But that's a small area that we're talking about, those winds. Most areas are going to see winds under hurricane strength, but a little area in here south of Baffin Bay may get those strong winds, and then it pulls off into the Rio Grande Valley. So here's live radar, a Doppler radar picking up that rain as it's pulling across the coastal bend. There's the center of the storm, and that heading westward. Behind that, you see all that moisture driving those showers and thunderstorms to the southwest this afternoon. Here's another heavy band that'll be coming on shore here probably within the next 30 to 40 minutes. We'll see that one by 10 o'clock or so, 10:30. The center of the storm still sitting about 60 miles off the coastline. So again, it's going to be mid-afternoon possibly before it actually makes landfall. By the way, if you were wondering how we calculate landfall, that's when the center of the storm hits the coastline, not the leading edge of it. So there you have it. Winds right now, let's take a look. These have been increasing all morning. In fact, right now we have sustained winds at 36 miles an hour at the Naval Air Station. The gusts have been as high as 47 miles an hour at the Naval Air Station. So approaching 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts with this system, and 39 at Corpus Christi. So it's blowing pretty good out there, and those winds are going to continue to increase. In fact, in Corpus Christi, the forecast wind from the National Weather Service showing 37-mile-an-hour sustained winds by 1 o'clock, but the gusts approaching 50 miles an hour in Corpus Christi. And if you're right on the water, it's going to be a little bit higher here. In fact, you can see Port Aransas forecast winds up to 55 miles an hour by 1 o'clock this afternoon. Those are the gusts. Sustained winds blowing pretty good clip there at about 40, and you can see Rockport up to 57. So these are some of the forecast winds, not as high as in Beeville. You're going to be doing a little bit better in Beeville. Not as much rain, not as much wind, but Kingsville is going to see those winds approaching 50 miles an hour. But as I mentioned, there's a small area that's going to see that hurricane force wind, and that's south of here. Long-range rainfall. We're going to get a lot of moisture out of this, obviously. These tropical systems tend to really dump the rain, and you can see this big area of yellow here. That's over 4 inches of rainfall. So the highest rain totals are south of Rockport. As you go north, notice they drop off. We're talking possibly over the next 3 days about 3 inches in Beeville, but up to possibly 10, 12 inches in pockets in our southern counties. A lot of rain here coming in the next few days, and temperatures staying in the 80s, not as warm. We are going to see the rain showers gradually tapering off, if you will, becoming more scattered as we head into next week as that storm moves away. But we still have a lot of tropical moisture, so the rain will linger, and then by the end of the week, we're much drier. Okay, with all that, I'll toss it back to you, Paulo.
Well, Sharon, I got a question for you.
All right.
Tell me we need to talk a little bit. We're telling folks to stay indoors because that's the safest place for them. You just gave us a rundown on the wind speeds. They give warnings and they issue these things for a reason. It doesn't take much for those wind gusts to pick something up, and then whatever it is turns into a projectile, something that can injure folks.
right.
So it's important to pay attention to these wind speeds.
Yeah, and that's why tropical storm force winds, we're talking up to 73 miles an hour. That's some pretty strong wind, even in a tropical storm, and that can blow things around and cause issues. Hurricane force winds 74 or greater, so certainly enough to really pick things up. In fact, you can start having structural damage and some trees broken by the time you get up to near 50-mile-an-hour winds. So,
wow.
Yeah, you just got to be prepared for these things.
All right, especially with the soggy ground.
Yeah.
Those winds can knock some trees and power lines down. Thank you, Sharon.
You're welcome.
And speaking of power lines, there have been several power outages that we've heard that are a big concern as Hanna blows in. Now, at the local AEP Texas managers, now they're making all the arrangements they need to bring in additional crews from other areas to help restore any power interruptions that the company has. And they're also advising people on life support systems to make the arrangements they need now for backups in case any prolonged outages happen. And earlier, I can tell you, we were having reports come in from Flower Bluff and surrounding areas. So for those folks, we need to be careful. You're looking at a map right now, and it's showing some of the power outages that we're experiencing. There's a handful of folks. There's been some outages have been restored, but there's still a handful of folks that are dealing without electricity right now. So stay put. AEP is aware, and they're doing all that they can right now to get that power up and going. So you should see crews heading into your area in just a bit. And that's why we're asking folks to stay off the roadways. We're going to have city crews, county crews out and about assessing these situations, trying to fix problems that are going on. And they don't need the roadways littered with folks just wanting to go out and see the damage that's been done or see how the storm is going. Now, there have been several neighborhoods that have been affected in Corpus Christi and Robstown. As I mentioned, the Flower Bluff area is currently experiencing power outages. Now, as of right now, there appears to be a handful of people. AEP is out and about working to get those outages fixed, and they're expected to have a busy weekend. So we're asking folks to stay patient. Now, if you have a generator on standby, the American Red Cross has some safety tips that you should follow. Be sure to turn the generator off and let it cool down before you refuel it. Gasoline spilled on a hot engine, well, that can offer up a whole nother issue. And remember, even a properly connected portable generator can become overloaded, resulting in overheating or generator failure. So be sure to read all the instructions before you plug it in. Now, any plug-in appliances directly plugged into the generator, be sure that you have a heavy-duty outdoor generator for those items if you're going to be plugging a lot of them. Now, Governor Greg Abbott has been in contact with Corpus Christi Mayor Joe McComb, and he assured the city that they'll get all the resources it needs when Hurricane Hanna hits.
He just wanted to reassure me that the state is prepared and on standby to help us and provide us whatever we need as this thing moves forward. And I was very comforted by that. They've got people positioned up and down the coast, and they're just a moment away from getting a phone call to putting them in action if and when we need them. So I appreciate the governor's concern. And I said, well, I'll give you a call. He said, well, you got my number, just call me. And he said, it'll go into action. He said, call him or Nim Kid and some of the others.
And the governor echoed that in a statement that he issued, asking Texans to take all the precautionary measures necessary to protect their lives and their property. And we also want to tell you about a warning this morning that San Patricio is giving us. Officials there are asking residents in any low-lying areas that live in motorhomes or travel trailers or may live in a space that cannot withstand hurricane force winds to evacuate. Now, it is a voluntary evacuation, and starting right now, they're asking folks other than those evacuating to stay off the roads until noon tomorrow. It's going to take a while for them to get out there and assess these situations, and the roads need to be cleared for that. And we're not the only ones that are being affected. Folks living in homes or trailers, we've got the homeless to think about. They have nowhere to go. Well, one place they do have to go is Mother Teresa Shelter. It's opening its doors to anyone seeking shelter from the storm. And it will be open 24/7 throughout the entire weekend. Now, the facility can house 35 people, and folks who ride out the bad weather there will have to follow social distancing rules, and they'll have to wear masks. With the full house expected, the shelter is asking for any donations the community can support.
Also, if anyone has any sleeping bags or stuff, we're not prepared for overnight. This was pulled together. But if you do have sleeping bags or hygienic items, we'd mostly greatly appreciate any donations.
And you can make a financial donation on the shelter's website if you so wish. The Mother Teresa shelter is located in the 500 block of Sam Rankin if you want to drop some items off to them. And we mentioned this earlier, if you haven't ventured out to the stores to get stocked up on supplies, you may be out of luck. Well, a lot of you listened to our warnings yesterday and were out and about. HEB was packed with folks picking up the essential items that they needed. This is video of the HEB on Saratoga, HEB Plus store there. The lines were long, the parking lots were packed. Sutherland's, they were another busy business. Folks heading over there to get the wood supplies that they need to either hatch down what they need or cover up windows, all to keep themselves safe. And not only did we have the hurricane to worry about, we're also worrying about COVID-19. We're in the middle of a health crisis. Now, we spoke with a customer who, despite the worry of that, they did head out to get the supplies they needed.
And he's very accessible, you know, so I have to be very cautious of where we go, what we're going to be doing.
Now, shoppers were happy to see shelves fully stocked. They were able to get everything that they needed. And first responders were out in the Las Colonias neighborhood yesterday. They were warning residents about the threat of flooding. Flooding is something that we're all going to be experiencing in one way or another. Now, the ground right now is so dry. We haven't had a lot of rains here lately. It's not going to be able to soak up the rainfall that's expected. So we have neighborhoods like the Las Colonias neighborhood and other areas that will flood, and you need to be prepared for it. Ashley Portillo visited some residents there and spoke more about the flooding that they've gone through and the concerns that they're dealing with now.
Yeah, I got it. Just let me know. On Friday evening, law enforcement went door to door in the Las Colonias neighborhood to let residents know to get ready for Tropical Storm Hanna.
We've been out here before where people can't get in and out and they're stuck. We don't want that to happen again.
Neighbors say law enforcement make their rounds in the area before every major storm.
It's the same process. They come through, tell us to, prepare for it.
Neighbors blame the flooding problems on cluttered drains near Lavoya Creek.
They haven't done too much improvement on this area.
But improvements could be coming soon. The Texas General Land Office has given the city a $7.2 million grant to build a retention pond in this area. And City Council expected to vote on that grant during their next council meeting. In the meantime, residents are making their last-minute preparations, like securing all the items in their yard.
Other than that, well, we just getting prepared for it, getting enough water, enough gas, you just can put some gas in the vehicles.
But for some residents, like Davina Hernandez, she said riding out this storm may be her last time.
I'm really scared this storm. I probably couldn't. I don't think I'll make it through this one.
Reporting in Corpus Christi, Ashley Portillo, KRIS 6 News.
Ms. Hernandez, you're going to be just fine. You're going to make it through this one and any other ones that come in the future. Most of you have been listening and heeding our warnings to stay safe, and we do this for a reason. So you will stay safe, and the city issues warnings and watches, all for a reason, to keep us safe. So let's listen to those. They are the experts, right? Well, floods during this heavy rain, it happens often at North Beach. We all know too well the situation that they deal with over there. I think we're trying to establish Roland Rodriguez there. He's been there since this morning, and he's been stationed there to keep us informed of the conditions there. We already saw some of the parts that were flooding up, and we do have him. Well, let's go to him now if we can, see what the conditions look like now and what they're dealing with, and if there are any officials around that he spoke with that can give us any further warning. Roland, nice to see you again this morning. Have you spoken with any officials, or are there any further warnings that we can maybe pass along to residents in the Coastal Bend community?
No, I've seen a lot of the police, the Corpus Christi Police Department are out here in patrol. Haven't talked to them, but I did talk to the beach and park enforcement fellas out here, and they said what they're doing is right now just pretty much patrolling the area. If they see anyone out and about or trying to get into the areas that are barricaded, they are asking them to leave and make sure it's for their own safety. And like you said, it's all about safety right now. And as far as them being out here, they're just being proactive in other words. So it's good to see them out here. Not too many people out here, matter of fact, here on North Beach. There's few visitors walking around taking some pictures, soaking in the atmosphere, because as we said, Hurricane Hanna is knocking on the doors, and right now we are just kind of just sitting and waiting. And we all know North Beach is known for its flooding, and as I mentioned, Hanna knocking on the door. There are a few things we want to talk about if you decide to leave the home, like flash floods. They can come fast and unexpectedly. You may not have a warning that a flash flood is coming, but it will approach, and if you're not prepared, you could be in trouble. And never attempt to drive through a flood that you can't walk through. 6 inches of water will reach the bottom of most passenger cars, and that depth, you think about it, Paulo, can cause a loss of control, possible stalling the car in the water, and it sucks that exhaust, the water right into the exhaust, which means it's taking a lot into that intake. And if you try to negotiate, through the flood section, the roads, it's tough. Drivers, what you want to do is pretty much drive right in the middle of the lane. That's pretty much always the shallowest part of the road. So if you see high waters, make sure you can see the yellow lines or the white lines in the middle of the road. And many cars, they start to float. Get this, they start to float in as little as a foot of water. This can be extremely dangerous because as the wheels get free, they lose grip, so you will lose control. 2 feet of flowing water can sweep away most vehicles, and they can, think about it, they could pretty much sweep away a 4-wheel drive, just a foot of rain. So those are just some of the things you want to think about if you decide to leave your home and venture out into these areas where they are prone to flood, Paulo.
Yeah, we don't want to use up those resources because people wanted to go drive around town and see how things look. Now, you've been there since early this morning, Roland, and you didn't have water around you this morning. How long has it take, or how fast did the water that we're seeing there right behind you, how fast did that come up?
Okay, so when we got here at 3, it was, pretty, it was a beautiful morning, light breeze, about 20 miles an hour. And then the winds kicked up, almost tripled that, about 60 miles an hour. And then the rain started coming, and Sharon said that we'd have some heavy patches, and then we had some light. But that water behind us, as we drove by here maybe 30 minutes ago, it wasn't there. So in less than 30 minutes, that water right there, is that standing water you see, has built up. So imagine what's going to happen when we start to get that heavy rain that's starting to go. It's going to pound us pretty soon. This area is going to be underwater and not very safe place to be around, or especially drive through.
All right, Roland. Well, we're going to check back with you in just a little bit. Get dry, man. Get you something to eat, okay? We'll check back with him in just a little bit. Now, we've got team coverage. We're going to be going wall to wall. We've got other resources that will be coming in. I know Drew Spear, Lee Sausley, they're all scheduled to come and share the anchor desk with me at some point. Now, the folks at the city's customer call center, they're planning for a busy weekend. They're the ones that you're going to want to call, okay? If you have any downed power lines, downed trees, blocked streets, they're moving on to a 24-hour operating schedule. They're typically closed on the weekend, but because of Hurricane Hanna and the destruction and the dangers that can come with it, they're going to be working and manning those phone lines. They are the ones that you need to call. Their number is 826-CITY, 826-CITY. Don't want you calling 911 and taking up those phone lines. Call the care center, the community center there. And if you were planning on getting around town, well, hopefully those plans have changed. But if you're planning on using the bus, RTA has canceled all of its routes for today. They say with the winds and the heavy rains that are forecasted, it'll make for an operation that won't be safe for everyone. And we'll keep you posted here when those services will be made available, and to keep you posted up to date with the very latest. Now, if some of you are venturing out, or maybe you're standing on your patio, you're looking out your back window, if you see any pictures that you'd like to send those in to our Facebook page. We'd love to share them on air as we get those pictures from in and around town. Now, Nueces County isn't the only one bracing for an encounter with Hanna. Claiborne County is doing the same as leaders spent Friday preparing for Hanna's impact. County Judge Rudy Madrid over there issued a voluntary evacuation order and a disaster declaration. Now, Judge Madrid says the voluntary order is for residents who are living in low-lying areas. You've heard us say that all morning long. Those living in low-lying areas need to be careful. They also had 2 sandbag distributions that were held there in Kingsville. One was a drive-through, one was a do-it-yourself. Corpus Christi also had a sandbag distribution center going on. And it's all to make sure we stay safe with Hanna looming in the future.
We really didn't need this storm because we're already in the middle of this pandemic. And so we must be cognizant of the fact that we do have a storm bearing down on us. It's going to impact everybody. But we cannot forget that we're in the middle of this pandemic, and we all have to do our part.
Now, officials with the city of Kingsville say if you have any concerns, the best way to reach them is through their website or Facebook page.
From KRIS 6 News, this is your Hurricane Hanna update, brought to you by the law offices of Herman & Herman.
And now let's turn things over to our expert and get a look at how the weather is shaping up right now. We've got Hurricane Hanna bearing down on us. It's still about 50, 60 miles away.
Yes, it's just under 60 miles off to the east, and that's heading westward at about 7. So we'll be showing you the timing of that. We can't forget this. This was 2017 as Hurricane Harvey, Category 4 storm, hit South Texas, and you're looking at aerials here of Rockport, hit very hard by this, still recovering from this terrible hurricane. And this was 2017. It made landfall August 25th, and Category 4, the strongest we've seen since Celia in 1970, and all that damage that was done by Harvey. Fortunately, what we're dealing with right now is certainly nothing even close to what we had with Harvey. As I mentioned, Harvey was a Category 4 storm. This one today, a Category 1, and it's not going to be a direct hit for us. But we are early in the season. In fact, we are just starting the hurricane season. If you look at the climatology here, in fact, we've already had 8 named storms, the earliest we've seen this many since the early 1960s. And you can see that here we are approaching August 1st, and we still have a long ways to go. The peak of the hurricane season is upon us as we head into late August and early September. And so this is usually the peak time of year. And it is expected to be an active year, too, as we are looking at the winds very favorable for development. We're heading into a La Nina pattern, a very good chance that our weather pattern will shift from neutral to La Nina, which tends to give us a low wind shear and a better chance of these storms. So we will keep watching it very closely, as we did with this one. We were tracking this since last week. In fact, there's a little wave out there off of the coast of Cuba, and now it is Hurricane Hanna, as it has tracked all the way across the Gulf and now developed into a Category 1 storm. That was at 7 o'clock this morning. By the way, this is the first hurricane of the season in the Atlantic, Caribbean, or Gulf for us. We've had 7 tropical storms and now a hurricane. So there you have it. And this one is closing in on us. The winds up to 80. This is a new report now. The storm has strengthened further, and it's at 80 miles an hour. There are the gusts at 100, and that is what was forecast. If you remember when I was showing that forecast path, that's what was forecast to be as it hits the coastline to our south this afternoon. So it's right on track. Here is Hurricane Hanna and the forecast cone, and again, it takes it inland, and I'm thinking between 2 and 3 this afternoon, and then it pushes it still as a Category 1 inland before it starts to weaken. And even after it's gone inland, it still has 80-mile-an-hour winds gusting to 100. So the hardest hit places are going to be from Baffin Bay southward. As you go north, the winds won't be quite as strong, but the hurricane force winds expected in the Baffin Bay south area, and and I'll be showing you that here in a minute. Here's live radar. This is our Doppler radar image, and you can see the circulation around the eye of this storm as it is getting closer to the coastline. The rain bands, there's one right here off the coast that's going to that rain's going to pick up considerably here, and that's around 10:30 to 11. You can see this band gradually working its way to the island, and that rain's going to become moderate to heavy at times for a little while. So that's the next one coming in, and that's going to be the nature of this storm as it is with these tropical systems. These bands rotate in, you get some heavy rain for a while, then it may slow down, you get it on and off, and that's what we will be seeing today. And even into tomorrow, we'll be seeing this lingering moisture. And of course, with these storms, we have the big pressure difference, low pressure in the center and drawing that air in, and we get a lot of wind and that circulation around the storm. We're seeing it. The wind has been picking up at the coastline today. In fact, right now the sustained winds are at 33 miles an hour at Port Aransas, 36 at the Naval Air Station. Farther inland, they're increasing as well. For you in Robstown, 20 mile an hour winds, 20 in Alice and 16 Beeville. Those are still pretty light from what we normally see here in the coastal bend, but those too will be increasing. The wind gusts right now have increased to 46 miles an hour at the Naval Air Station, and in Corpus Christi approaching 40 miles an hour for the gusts. Those are going to be peaking in Corpus Christi over 50 here in the next few hours. So again, that wind will continue to come up a notch. Here is the new wind radius forecast. The yellow indicating tropical storm winds, the orange a top-end tropical storm, and the red hurricane force winds. That's 74 miles an hour or greater. Again, a small area of hurricane force winds here, but those are making a beeline here for the Baffin Bay area just south. And you can see the tropical storm force winds all the way up into the coastal bend, including Corpus Christi, Rockport, and toward Alice. And this is 3 o'clock this afternoon. Okay, now we see that center of circulation and the strongest winds pulling inland, and that wind gradually decreasing as it does as the system starts to lose its intensity a little bit. But we'll still be pretty windy here tonight, but the winds will gradually decrease as we head into tomorrow. But the rain won't. The rain's going to keep going on and off the next couple of days. So with that, we talk about a lot of wind numbers, but we don't tell you how it's going to affect you. And many of you already know what they do from previous systems that have come through. But just to give you an idea, the Beaufort wind scale defines here the type of damage that can be done by these winds. And tropical storm winds are 39 miles an hour. And as we get up to 63 miles an hour, we can see anything from small twigs broken, shingles were torn off of roofs, as well as some structural damage, depending on, of course, the structure, and some trees broken. So we're likely to see some damage around the area. We've already had some power outages, and I would expect those to increase. We may see more of those as we head into the afternoon here and there. All right, so the newest future tracker showing that next band of rain that I showed you, that's going to move over the coastline. Some moderate to heavy rain will move in between 10 and 11. That starts to push inland. Then we see more on and off rain around this system. The most concentrated band of heaviest rain is going to stay to our south, but we'll continue to see it on and off here. Notice here's Kingsville, and just to your south there's another band of heavy rain by noon today. So again, the story is a lot of moisture, and it doesn't stop. You can see this is tomorrow. We still have showers and thunderstorms in the forecast, and very scattered to numerous tomorrow and even into Monday as the tropical moisture lingers, and we have these waves coming in of low pressure, these upper level disturbances that'll agitate the atmosphere. So with that said, the next 3 days, this is the long range rainfall. We have that yellow to orange here colors, that's 4 inches or greater, and then as you go north, the rain amounts drop off. But we're still looking at a good dose across the entire area over the next few days. I won't be watering for a little while. Most of us will be able to hold off on the watering for probably the next 5 or 6 days or so. So in the 7-day forecast, we've got some heavy rain in the forecast and a lot of wind today into tomorrow. Still some showers and storms with heavy rain. Also, watch for the potential today of a severe thunderstorm, which is possible, may include a tornado or two. We'll be monitoring that through the afternoon. And then tomorrow we'll see that chance of storms again with heavy rainfall, very likely chance, by the way, into Monday. And then they'll start to become more scattered as we head through the week. And then the heat, typical heat and humidity for this time of year returns, and it's drying out toward the end of the work week. Paulo.
Hey, Sharon, guess who's here? Good morning.
I didn't see you come in, Drew. How you doing?
Good morning. We haven't worked together in a while because we've been simulcasting for some time because of the pandemic, but it's good to be here. Good to see you.
Nice
and
to
of
see
course,
you.
a lot of people waking up this morning, the first thing they're going to do is turn on their television sets to find out what in the heck is going on out there. In fact, I did the very same thing a little while ago, and I was a little surprised that we weren't getting inundated with a lot of rain and even higher winds than what we have now. Is that because we're not quite at the point yet where the true surge and the true storm is going to be coming onto land in the Corpus Christi area?
Yeah, a couple of reasons, and you mentioned one of those. First of all, this eye hasn't moved onto the coastline yet, and secondly, it's moving farther to the south. You know, a couple days ago, it looked like it might hit Corpus Christi. Well, the actual eye of the storm, and by the way, we have the strongest winds around the eye wall, just outside the eye wall of the storms, and that's going south of us. We're still going to get the wind, though, Drew, and we will see more rain as it continues to pick up through the day as the storm continues.
I want to ask you one more thing. Can you punch up the actual storm right now?
Let's see if I can do
because
that.
Because typically you talk about many times the worst of the winds are if you're north of the eye.
That's right. Yeah.
So if that's the case, then we are going to be a little north of the eye, which means we might get higher winds than we may have expected because of that. Could you sort of talk a little bit about that?
I'd be happy to. Yes, you can see on Doppler radar here the circulation of this storm, and here's the eye right here. Strongest winds are on the outside of the eye wall. We call it. We are going to have some strong winds here, and there are forecasts of winds gusting to 60 miles an hour, possibly up to 70, but you'll notice how far south that strongest wind area is. So as you get north of there, here's Rockport, here's Port Aransas, they'll be a little bit lower. But I do think we have the potential of seeing some 60-mile-an-hour winds here as we get into Port Aransas and Rockport as that moves in. So we're watching that. We haven't had that yet. But fortunately, we're not going to be dealing with the very strong winds. If you saw that forecast down probably near Raymondville, in that area, they're looking at the potential of 80-mile-an-hour winds gusting to 100 closer to that circulation as it tracks to the Baffin Bay region.
Yeah, so it's maybe not quite as powerful, thank goodness, and we may have expected even as late as last night talking about potential for wind gusts up to maybe 90 miles per hour in some areas. And so initially we were saying that this was going to be, for the most part, more of a wind storm or a rainstorm than a windstorm. It's a little bit of a combination of both because we did not deal with as much, as far as I can remember, with Harvey, as much storm surge as we're seeing sort of with this storm already. So that seems to be, flooding could be a real issue potentially for us with this particular storm.
That's right. And remember the quadrants that you mentioned, Drew. We have the highest storm surge in that upper right quadrant of the storm, and Harvey went to our north, so we weren't in that quadrant. And this one, it's a little different, and although it's a much weaker storm and the storm surge is lower, we're getting it. And we've already seen that with Chelsea's live reports here from the island, where we've seen that water coming pretty high up on the beaches already.
Now, the other question I wanted to ask you is, you talk about because it was moving, I don't know what it's the miles per hour now, but it was like, 8 to 10 or 10 miles an hour last night. That just means we're going to have a prolonged 12-hour plus rain shower event over the next 12 to 18 hours or so, which means that's going to bring the rain for us, right?
Yeah, that too. In fact, this system did slow down a little bit. It was moving at 9 miles an hour. The last report I saw was 7. So with the slowing down, it's also intensifying too. So that's going to increase those rain totals for us a little bit with that slower movement. And not to mention, even after the eye goes inland, Drew, we're still looking at, as we have the weather pattern is kind of blocking any higher pressure from coming in, if you will. So we're going to continue to see that lingering moisture. And although the circulation won't be here, we have other disturbances. That's going to keep that rain going into next week as well.
Weather science, it's interesting, and these storms are always so spectacular to track and to try to, they're all different, they all move different, they have unexpected things that happen, and that's what makes us so you never know what is going to happen when you're dealing with a hurricane. And this one certainly went sort of west and heading toward us when it was really supposed to go north, and so it's been interesting tracking it. I know the rest of the time that we're going to be covering the storm, we're going to keep everybody up to date at home, certainly on the winds and the floods and the rain. and that's what we're here for. We're not going to go anywhere until we get through this storm, and we are here for you. And Sharon, thanks so much for the update.
You're welcome.
And we're going to be checking back with Sharon, of course, on a regular basis throughout the rest of the day, and Dale Nelson will be in a little bit later. And if you do have photos out there, if you have storm surge pictures, but we certainly don't want you to put yourself in harm's way. That's first and foremost. If you can shoot a photograph out your window, out your balcony, out your deck, or if you or have something you want to share with somebody who has shared it with you, certainly send it our way. Hashtag Hanna Storm KRIS, and we'll be happy to put those pictures on the air. And we are looking forward to seeing what you're seeing, so we give a better idea of what exactly is happening out there, so we can have eyes and ears all across the coastal bend, so we can give you updates from anywhere and everywhere regarding what people are actually seeing out there. So that's what you want to do with any weather photos that you may have. And of course, we do have reporters out in the field. We'll begin checking in with them as well on a regular basis with regard to the very latest. It's going to be a news conference. I understand the city is going to be holding a news conference, I believe, in about a little less than an hour and a half from now. And I'm not sure, Sharon, did you say that the peak time it's going to hit is around 1 o'clock our time?
That is expected landfall around closer to 2, actually,
okay.
To our south, yes.
Okay, so it's 11:30, a news conference, so we believe that's what's going to happen. We'll certainly give you all the details of that and find out what the very latest is the city is doing, because they are doing their best to make sure you are safe. So if you are at home, we advise you to stay at home. Hopefully you were able to get out yesterday, perhaps the day before, and get some of the things that you need so you can sort of hunker down. And we've been kind of used to hunkering down around here over the last few months because of COVID-19. And so it's just a different way to hunker down. We want you to stay safe and stay inside, because as Sharon was mentioning, we still could get damaging winds and certainly flooding from this storm. Here we are at the beaches. We close these beaches, as you know, yesterday, I believe it was at noon, when the beaches were closed to pedestrians. That doesn't look like that now, I can promise you, because the storm surge has already come up. This already passed the dunes, right at the dunes area. And so the beaches are obviously closed, although there's always that person or people who want to get out there and windsurf or something ahead of a storm. But for the most part, you don't see this very often when you look down the beach, and you don't really see anything but water and no beach, really. And that's what it looks like now. So this was before the storm, and it's a little bit different looking now. But we do want you to play it safe and stay at home and stay away from the areas that we all love so much, certainly on days like today and tomorrow, and for the next few days. It's going to be a little difficult out there, because once the storm passes through, what's the next thing we have to do? Assess the damage. You got to assess the damage, then you got to get people away from the beach, and you got to do the cleanup. So there's a process. We've been through this before, as we all know, with Hurricane Harvey and prior storms. So we'll just have to wait and see once it's all said and done, just what kind of damage was inflicted upon the coastal bend as we go through yet another hurricane, the second one in 3 years. Let's check in with our Chelsea Torres, who I believe is live out near the beach area that we just showed you. Chelsea, it's getting breezy out there, huh?
A little breezy out here, Drew. Sorry about that. It's definitely been picking up here in the past 20 minutes or so. Okay, I'm just going to move out of the way. So this is what we've been watching. My photographer, Dylan, is going to zoom in. He even made the comment that a lot of that water that you see from the beach, it's pushing up consistently over that middle median. Now, when we got out here at about 4 a.m. earlier today, we parked right next to that median, so that way we could have a better shot. Well, within about 10-15 minutes or so, that tide started coming up, and that was about 4:15 a.m. We moved up within maybe an hour or so. Corpus Christi's Parks and Recreation Department came out and they started moving up these barricades. Now, these barricades were originally out in front of that middle center median where that sign that says beach is. That's where these barricades originally were. Parks and Recreation has already been out here 3 times just to move up these barricades. And it's getting stronger. That wind is definitely getting stronger out here. And that's kind of what's been happening over the course of the 5-6 hours or so that we've been out here. It'll be strong gusts of wind, strong rain, increased rain coming down, and then the tide will definitely come up a lot stronger, and then it starts to die down. Since we've been out here, since I've been standing out here for the past 10 or so minutes, the rain hasn't really let up, the wind hasn't really slowed down, and if anything, the tide just continues to get stronger. That storm surge is definitely pushing through. When we spoke to the Parks and Recreation Department, they said that a lot of that tide that comes in is actually hitting part of the dunes. They said to give them a call. Sorry, it's getting windier out here. They said to give them a call if they noticed anything funny, and we thought, well, what would necessarily be funny? He said because of the dunes right now, they're getting hit so hard and getting destroyed by this strong storm surge that it could even knock down whatever that is on the sides of it. So there is a sign way over on the right side of the dunes. There's also a light pole over here on the left side of the dunes. And he said just to keep an eye on it, let them know. The city's Park and Recreation Department, they have 25 miles of beach that they have to go throughout our area just to make sure that they are barricading whatever part of the storm surge comes through. And again, they've been out here already 3 times to push these barricades back. Now you can see all of that debris right here in the middle. That's been coming up just from the storm surge and from the tide coming up strongly. So this is kind of what we're experiencing since we've been live. This is probably the worst that it's looked because of the wind and because of the rain that we currently have right now. Drew?
Kelsey, you've been out there since last night. Of course, you're at Whitecap Beach, and you've seen a lot of things change since just last night. This might be the beginning of the real push. So if you are in a situation there where you see the dunes somewhat being compromised, we don't want you to put yourself in harm's way, certainly. Because that light standard behind you, if that gives way, then you could be in a precarious situation. Tell us a little bit more about how things have changed just since 12 hours ago, 10 o'clock last night when you did your report for our KRIS 6 News at 10 o'clock.
So, Drew, when we got out here, we actually noticed that the Stripes gas station was completely boarded up, and that was about 4 a.m. over off of Whitecap and Park Road 22. We noticed that they were completely boarded. And as we got further out here, again, the tide was way further back. The barricades were way further back. It definitely was not looking as bad as it is now. You mentioned people should not be out at the beaches, and you are absolutely right. If anything, more people have been coming out here to take pictures and video. But you can see this tide just continues to get stronger, and it's being more consistent. So that's what we've noticed even just in the past 5 hours that we've been out here this morning.
You're in a place where you're going to get the brunt of it, so be careful out there, certainly, and we'll check back with you a little bit later. We understand the storm should be approaching actually that area where you are at about 1 o'clock, so don't look for things to get any better anytime soon, but so hunker down out there, and we'll check back with you when we can. If you have something you need to share with us, be sure to give us a heads up, and we'll come right back out to you. Chelsea,
Will do. Thank you, Drew.
Okay, thank you. Reporting live out there at the Whitecap Beach, and you can see the conditions yourself deteriorating as each moment and minute and hour goes by. And that's been the situation since last night, and it's only going to get worse before it gets better. Once again, we want to remind everybody out there, you need to be safe, stay at home, be prepared to there could be the time during the course of the day where some people may lose power. You be prepared for that. It could happen. We'll keep you updated on that. AEP has extra crews. They brought in extra crews to help with any power outages that we may or may not have. But most likely, if you've been around here during any kind of storms or heavy rain events, then we all know that for the most part, we will deal with some power outages at some point today. The question is where and when and just how bad will it be. So if you have some flashlights nearby, keep those available, and water. And this is A&M Kingsville's campus right now, where it looks pretty calm. It doesn't even looks like a regular cloudy weekend out there. And I don't know what Sharon, the storm is really going to be heading more in that direction, is it not? A little more south toward Kingsville than it is us. She says yes, but there, look how calm it is. I don't know if that's unusual at this stage of the game or not, but But quite the contrast from Whitecap Beach and A&M University Kingsville right now. And I can promise you, we will check back at this shot a little bit later on, and it's going to be completely different looking. The good thing is you don't see a single person walking outside. You see nothing but quietness, calm before the storm out there at A&M University Kingsville. So they're doing the right thing. We will keep you updated when the storm starts approaching that area. And it's pretty, quite a contrast, incredible contrast between the pictures we just showed you with Chelsea Torres and what you're looking at now at A&M Kingsville, which is going to be in the crosshairs, it looks like. And keep in mind that, you know, you saw some of that debris that was washing up to shore with Chelsea there at Whitecap Beach. Well, debris is obviously a big part of dealing with storms, and the city crews are going to be obviously very, very busy doing just what you see right here, collecting as much debris as possible and taking care of it. Solid waste, of course, is on standby, and as soon as they are able to put those trucks back on the streets, they will do so, and that's going to be after this storm has passed and when it is safe. But we do know that they're going to have their hands full once this storm passes by in terms of cleaning up waste and debris that is on the streets. So the situation right now is one where we're sort of waiting for the worst to happen. And we do want you to know also that for those of you who do get out on occasion and you have to do certain things, RTA has always been there for you. But the RTA, basically, as you see it right there, no RTA today. Dangerous driving conditions, obviously, they don't even want to put their people out there in harm's way during an oncoming and approaching hurricane. So if you have to get out, I hope that you have already done so. But if you have to get out, I hope there's some place that or someone who can get you where you need to go and back as short of a drive as possible. But no RTA today. We'll give you more details on what their plans are. Pardon me. As we move forward, but no RTA today makes sense. We don't need the people out and about anyway. If RTA was running their buses today, most likely people would try to get on those buses, and that's what we don't want. We don't want people to be out in this weather. Let's go now to the city call data center where, you know, they're taking your phone calls 24 hours a day right now, and the number is pretty simple. It's 361-826-CITY. You can call them if you have there's some debris issues, if you got a drain blockage. Do not call the police in situations like this. This is the number to call, is 826-CITY with some issues that you may be having. If there's a downed power line or a downed pole or tree or what have you, some blockage of a drain that's creating some flooding, that's the number that you need to call. Now we want to check in with what's going on at Las Colonias. We know that that's a situation out there where flooding is always going to be an issue, and we have our Ashley Portillo out there right now with more on that. Ashley?
Yeah, I got it. Just let me know.
On Friday evening, law enforcement went door to door in the Las Colonias neighborhood to let residents know to get ready for Tropical Storm Hanna.
We've been out here before where people can't get in and out and they're stuck. We don't want that to happen again.
Neighbors say law enforcement make their rounds in the area before every major storm.
It's the same process. They come through, tell us to, prepare for it.
Neighbors blame the flooding problems on cluttered drains near La Jolla Creek.
They haven't done too much improvement on this area.
But improvements could be coming soon. The Texas General Land Office has given the city a $7.2 million grant to build a retention pond in this area. And City Council expected to vote on that grant during their next council meeting. In the meantime, residents are making their last-minute preparations, like securing all the items in their yard.
Other than that, well, we just getting prepared for it, getting enough water, enough gas, just can put some gas in the vehicles.
But for some residents, like Davina Hernandez, she said riding out this storm may be her last time.
I'm really scared this time. I probably couldn't. I don't think I'll make it through this one.
Reporting in Corpus Christi, Ashley Portillo, KRIS 6 News.
And we hope those people out there in Las Colonias neighborhood are going to be okay today. And of course, we hope that the floods don't get as worse as they could be. And they've been through it before. They know what to expect, and they do know what's coming. There are no mandatory evacuations right now in and around the coastal bend, none of that we know of at all. But we can tell you there are some voluntary evacuations, including San Patricio County, which I believe is under a voluntary evacuation. If you live in a low-lying area, if you live in a motorhome or a travel trailer, you know what the drill is. Any structures that can't handle strong winds, you need to get out of those just for safety protocol. There's a travel advisory, obviously, in effect for our area, but no mandatory evacuations. But this is issued for San Patricio County. So if you live in a low-lying area, if you know somebody, have a relative who lives in a higher ground, you may want to contact that person and see if you can't get with them to get you into a safe situation. Let's give you the latest on we talked earlier about the potential for power outages in the area. We know what's going to happen. We don't know where exactly, but we do know that typically this is a situation. They have been preparing for this. You can always prepare for a storm, but you never can fully prepare because there's always the unexpected that happens. And so AEP has brought in extra crews. They're preparing for outages, obviously, as we track Hurricane Hanna into our area. So they are prepared to do what they need to do to keep the power restored in those areas that may have to deal with some power outages during this process over the next 24 hours. So they are prepared. Just know that if you lose power, you have a phone call. If you have a phone number, you can call that number at 826-CITY number and let the city officials know the situation. But trust me, if the power goes out somewhere, AEP is going to know about it, and they're going to get manpower on that job as soon as possible. So just know that the city has prepared. They have everything they have everything in place for expect the unexpected, and so. Here's some, these are some power outages going on in the area. You see the numbers on your screen there where, I don't know, this is like a couple of homes, looks like in the middle of Corpus Christi area with 31. So we're already seeing some power outages, so AEP is on those. We'll give you updates as to what their status is. Typically, when they come out to a particular area, they will give us an update on how long they expect the power to be out or when they can actually have that power restored. But these numbers obviously are going to go up in different areas during the course of the day. But you can see out on the island already a couple of areas where the power has gone out. And if you do have a backup generator, we have some generator safety tips for you. If you do lose power, obviously the generator will kick on for you. Be sure to let the generator cool down first and foremost. These are tips from the American Red Cross. And if you have a generator, you want to make sure you use it properly and wisely and you do the right thing. And so these are the tips that you need to follow and should follow. If you don't do so, here they are. Don't overload the generator. Make sure it's cooled down. And plug in appliances directly into the generator. And some generators, you have to make sure that depending on how you plug those appliances directly into the generator does have to have juice. So it's always nice to get those things taken care of before the storm. But again, cool down, let the generator cool down, don't overload it, could be obviously a problem. You want to get as much power as you can, but just use the power that you need to use with a generator, unless you have one that can handle much more of, depending on the size of the generator. But be careful when you plug appliances directly into the generator. You do not want that generator to overload. So let's get the very latest. We do want to check in on a regular basis, of course, with our meteorologist, Sharon, who is here now. Sharon Ray's here, and we're gonna go back to her and talk a little bit more about where we are at this point and how things have if any, have changed since the top of the hour. Sharon.
From KRIS 6 News, this is your Hurricane Hanna update, brought to you by the law offices of Herman & Herman.
A look back, we're going to go back a few years here to 2017 to Harvey. Category 4 storm devastated the coastline here near Rockport, which are looking at aerial shots as it made landfall August 25th. Some winds up to 154 miles an hour around the Rockport area, peaking there, and just terrible damage. As you can see, it just devastated the area. Now, this was the worst hurricane, or the major hurricane, the first one we've seen since Celia in 1970. So then Harvey came along in 2017 and as a Category 4 storm, and we can certainly remember back just a few years ago, in fact not even 3 years yet, as we're still working out or actually 3 years, as we're still working out that damage, still having some issues in Rockport, trying to get everything back to normal here. This storm, fortunately, is much weaker, and it's not even a direct hit for us. This is a Category 1 storm, and the result today has been increasing rain and the wind increasing as well. And you're looking live at Corpus Christi downtown, where we've been seeing on and off rain in the area. We've picked up 0.3 of an inch at the airport. The winds are north, sustained at 26 miles an hour right now in Corpus Christi. 15-mile-an-hour winds. Nothing strong in the winds here in Kingsville and inland areas are still only 15 to 20. With a cloudy sky and rain, we're seeing Kingsville at 79 degrees right now, and there's that 21-mile-an-hour wind in Kingsville. And then as we look at the rain totals, you can see they're coming up, and they'll continue to inch up over the day. In fact, when we get these bands of heavier rain coming in, of course, they'll bump up faster. We have a 1/2 inch right now at Port Aransas, 0.6 at the Naval Air Station, and 1/3 of an inch so far in Corpus Christi. So what to expect with this is the heavy rain is the main threat. In fact, it's not just going to be today, but over the next 3-day period, we'll see that rain adding up. So we're thinking still up to 4 to 8 inches, but some areas will see possibly 12 inches of rainfall out of this. So this is through Monday as the moisture continues to linger even behind the circulation. We have thunderstorms and showers in the forecast for a few days now. The heaviest will be today and tomorrow. We also have that landfall. I think this is pushed back a little bit. It's going to be closer between 2 and 3 to our south. The system's moving 7 miles an hour, a little bit slower, but we're still looking at the potential for those wind gusts in the coastal bend. If you live north, 40 miles an hour, possibly up to 70 in our southern counties, closer to the center of that circulation, and that could do some damage. So we're not out of the woods out of this one yet, but fortunately the major impact is to our south. But you can see the details on this one is we've already seen this today, and we're going to continue to see it through tomorrow as the coastal flooding. The storm surge with this is 3 to 5 feet. And Chelsea's been giving us a live look at that from Padre Island. Isolated tornadoes are going to be a possibility today in any of the cells, the thunderstorms that move around the circulation. So we have to watch this system through the day. Not only do we have the storm surge, but also those potential for those stronger or severe storms. Now, the storm surge, that water kind of piles up out on the upper right quadrant of the storm is where we see the better chance of getting that storm surge and the highest storm surge. That wind coming in directly off of the ocean, pushing that water up, and that ocean surge continues to move in. So normal sea level can quickly go up 3, possibly 6 feet. In our situation, we're looking 3 to 5 here today and tomorrow. And then as you get into some of the stronger storms, it can inundate the coastal towns and just take over. So the storm surge is a big part of this. It's huge when we talk about hurricanes, and something that we often warn you about. And the National Hurricane Center did do that. They did put us under that storm surge warning. We're looking at that water coming up to the beaches 3 to 5 feet above ground level. So dealing with the storm surge, because we are in that favorable quadrant of the storm, you can see it. If you take a look at this storm, you see how the rotation around this, pushing that water up to the coastline. This is the most favorable spot for that storm surge. As you get to, on the backside of the storm, generally you don't see it as high. So a lot of rain too wrapping around as this system's getting closer to the coast. Now, the latest information from the National Hurricane Center. Currently, we have 80-mile-an-hour winds. This has been intensifying all morning long. Still a Category 1 storm. 100-mile-an-hour wind gusts right now, and you can see on the movement it's slowed down a little, but it's going to the west today, not to the northwest. So it's moving straight into the coastline here and is forecast to continue to do that and then turn a little bit to the south. So the latest path on this, here's our Category 1 hurricane. Here's Corpus Christi up here, and you can see here's Baffin Bay, Kingsville about here. Notice the storm takes that southern track here and is currently forecast to go south of Baffin Bay. And as it makes landfall mid-afternoon or so, we're looking at those winds still around 80 miles an hour, gusting to 100, maybe even a little higher than that. It could intensify slightly, and then it starts to weaken as it moves inland. So we are, fortunately not getting a direct hit by this. It's farther to the south, but we are feeling the effects, which we will through the day today. So here's live radar. The rain picking up again. There's that next band coming in as forecast. You can see it right along Padre Island. We've got some moderate rain coming down. And as you saw from Chelsea's live shot, not only the rain, but the wind too. As you go inland, we're also seeing some rain, another band of rain from Sinton to Robstown. And this is going to be on and off through the day, and it'll be heavy at times as those bands move through. And then again, we have to watch for the potential of any severe weather with any of those cells. Okay, the winds have picked up again, and they continue, which isn't surprising. This is what we were expecting with that circulation getting closer. And the current wind right now at the Naval Air Station is 43 miles an hour. That's sustained winds. Pretty decent wind blowing. That's, by the way, tropical storm force winds right now, as expected at the Naval Air Station. So that tropical storm force wind is going to continue to pull inland into Corpus Christi and then gradually pushed more to the south as that circulation moves through today. This is the actual wind speed sustained. This is the gust. Look at that. Those gusts now up to 55 miles an hour at the Naval Air Station. So we've got some strong wind gusts out there this afternoon along the island, Padre Island through Port Aransas Pass. Rockport, you're seeing 36 mile an hour wind gusts now and 33 at Robstown, Corpus Christi at 37. So we'll see that wind increasing, and you can see from the wind radius graphic here, these are the tropical storm force winds that we just saw moving onto the island.